Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Ross Dolan from IMMOLATION, and you are listening to Tinnitus.
First of all, thank you for your time. Can you please introduce yourself?
Ross Dolan, bass vocal, IMMOLATION.
Congratulations with the new album that came out a couple of weeks ago. Really like the stuff.
Thanks, man.
Very good reception in the press and from the fans. It's always fun or pleasure when the reactions are so positive, I guess.
Yeah, this one's been a little overwhelming. You know, we finished the record back in like June of last year, so we've been kind of sitting on these songs for a while now. So we were used to them. We've been listening to them. So it wasn't until we first started doing the press, I think in December, that we started getting some of the feedback, and it was pretty positive. But once the album came out, and we were on the road in February, right when the album came out, we were touring with the Cavallero Brothers for the Return to Roots tour. And we played a lot of new material on that tour, and it got a great response live, and the record wasn't even out yet, so that was a good sign. So once the album came out, we started seeing a lot of positive press, and the response from the fans has been good. So yeah, we'll take it. It's been like overwhelmingly positive. It's we're not used to that. Usually there's always some sort of critique, or negative, but it's been pretty good. So. We're happy.
Some other legendary death metal bands are planning to release some new albums this year.
Yeah, it's going to be a good year.
Yeah.
Should be a lot of good stuff.
The bar is set already very high.
Well, sorry guys. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to a lot of good stuff coming out this year, so it should be good. It should be a good year. That's what the scene needs, So hopefully everything will be, where it should be. We're looking forward to, hearing a lot of stuff this year. So we'll see.
I was not only impressed by the songwriting, but also with the production. You worked with some guys that you used to work with. Was recorded in Millbrook Studios in New York.
Yep.
Paul Orofino and Zach Oren.
Yeah, I mean, when we going into this album, there were a few things we wanted to address, from Kingdom. Kingdom, was a much different album. It was a more aggressive album. On the production side of things, it definitely needed some tweaks for sure, and we were aware of that, and our fans, our fans are never shy. They always tell us, what they like and what they don't like. And one of the main things we took out of that album was the fact that a lot of people weren't too happy with the drum production, and we understood. I mean, we got it. We weren't 100% happy with the drum production either. Unfortunately, you're working against time. You have so much time in the studio. You have so much of a budget, to put into it. So basically, you come down to the wire, and it is what it is. So moving forward into this new record, that was one of the main things we wanted to address, was the drum production first and foremost. And when we touched base with Zach Oren, to tell him, we wanted him on board for this next album, first thing he said to us was, I hope I have some more time, because I really want to work on the drums. So he was on the same page. That's my point. Everybody was on the same page. So I think with this record, we had a lot more time to give Zach. Paul Orofino always does a great job in capturing the sounds and the tones we want in the studio, and then what Zach does with it is, that's when he throws his magic in. So he had a lot more time with this record. We had some setbacks. That's why it took so long from the time we started the writing process until it actually came out. So when we went into the studio in June, we had pushed it back, a few times already. So time wasn't really an issue. We weren't really concerned with, deadlines at this point. Neither was the label. So we told Zach, listen, take your time, make it right. And the label said the same thing, just make sure, you guys are happy with it. So I think the fact that he had a lot more time to spend on it and, wasn't so rushed, I think he had time to really kind of do what he needed to do. And I think he nailed it this time. I mean, the production is, it's well produced without being overproduced. It has a nice atmosphere, a nice feeling. The drums sound more natural on this one, and I think for the first time in a while, like, all the instruments are able to shine on this record. Nothing's kind of stepping on anything else. So I think that's important, especially with the kind of stuff that we play. You know, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of sections have multiple guitar tracks, and so it's very important to hear that stuff. If that stuff gets lost, then you're losing the whole dynamic of the song. So I think the fact that he had that extra time, I think, made it what it is, and we're very happy. And so far the feedback has been very good. Everybody, I think, is really happy with it. So we're happy. we're glad that everybody's digging it.
The album promo, for what it's worth, states that Atonement is an album commenting on the darker side of humanity and the world today.
Absolutely.
Is the world in a worse shape than it is 20 years or when you started with Immolation?
The world's always been in a bad way, just that I think these times now, I think it's just more apparent. We seem to be going backwards in a lot of ways. It's like, and that's always seems to be the case. You make a couple of strides forward, and then you take a couple of strides backwards. It seems to be like an ebb and flow in our reality always. But I think now it's just, I think it's just the sheer brazenness and the arrogance of the powers that be now that's just concerning to me. So there's a lot of that on this record. We touch on a lot of different aspects of our reality today. Similar to Kingdom, whereas Kingdom was a concept album which was kind of inspired by George Orwell's 1984, and we kind of applied that to, the time when we wrote that back then. So every song kind of had that, thread of continuity through it, Whereas this album, it's not really a concept album, although we do kind of expand on some of those ideas. So yeah, it was a cool album. It was a fun album to write lyrically because we had all these ideas that were just kind of festering inside, and once we got in the studio and started articulating the ideas, things started to come to light. Some of the ideas were a little tricky to articulate. I think Destructive Currents was a tricky one to articulate because what that song was about. Fostering the Divide was another one.
I was going to ask you something about Fostering the Divide. Can we link that to the presidential election in the States, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, it goes part and parcel. It's not specifically about that. It's just about the many divisive forces in our world, and politics is one of those forces, politics, nationalism, religion, race, these are all divisive forces, it's the whole divide and conquer theory, what I'm saying? If you keep the people separated and divided, you can't collectively come together to make any kind of positive change. And that's kind of been the MO for hundreds of years, that's always the way it's been, it's like, it's just a reality, it's just a fact, you know what I'm saying? But sometimes people get caught up in the media, and the media is toxic. The media is very toxic, especially in the United States, especially when you understand that all of our media is owned by like 4 or 5 corporate entities. So it's not really, it's not really a truthful media. It's a media that has an agenda, and they push that agenda.
Do you in a way feel that Immolation is also a way to inform people about bad things going on?
It's kind of, I guess in a sense, although we don't look at it that way. It's we try not to get preachy about it. It's just us looking at the world, and it's our very cynical look at the world, you know what I'm saying? And we just kind of talk about these things because I think you need to kind of bring these things to light for people to really understand them and to kind of get them. And luckily, I think the fans of the extreme metal scene are very sharp. They're very smart. They get it. They're very much in touch with the world. You know what I'm saying? I talk to fans all the time in U.S., in Europe, and they get it, and they appreciate the stuff that we're writing about. Because we do it in such a way it's not overly political. It doesn't cross that line. I never want to be a political band because I hate fucking politics. Politics is poison. But unfortunately, it kind of, it's part of the whole picture, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So Fostering Divide is about just that. It's about the many divisive forces that I think keep people, good example of that, if you want to speak politics, is the right and left issue in the Republicans and the Democrats, To me, they're 2 arms of the same body. It's the same thing, but it's a great show to put on to kind of distract people and to get people arguing about, this candidate's better. No, my candidate's better, But really, they're all toxic to me. All of them are toxic, And I'm sure that's not just the case in America. I'm sure it's the case all over the world, But it's just the world we live in today. So, that song specifically was a tricky one because I wanted to, we wanted to make it have a strong statement about that, but we wanted to kind of be ambiguous in the sense that we didn't, talk about specifics. It's just an overview,
Was the song written during the campaign? I guess so.
That song, well, you got to remember, the whole presidential campaign started about a year and a half before the election. So we were just inundated with this garbage for like a year and a half, nonstop, It was just so sickening, So when we went in the studio in June, that was when we wrote most of the lyrics in the studio. So you got to figure that was about 5 or 6 months before the election, So the election specifically didn't inspire any of the songs, you know what I'm saying? It was always there, you know what I'm saying? But it was, again, a small piece of the bigger picture, really. That's all.
The title song is about the destructiveness of religious extremism.
Atonement, yes.
Yeah. Have you, in a way, had to cope with backlash from religious groups in certain countries? Or, for example, is it hard to get gigs in the Bible Belt when you play music?
No. I mean, the song is just about that religious extremism, whether it's in general, whether it's not specific to any religion, it's not specific to any one banner. It's just religious extremism, which has existed since the beginning of time, pretty much. There's extremist groups, in our country that aren't religious affiliated. You know what I'm saying? So it's about this that I kind of get like that fundamentalist kind of attitude where you kind of interpret things very literally, and then you kind of lash out at the world, to kind of, prove, or whatever, to kind of prove your point, or to kind of, perpetuate your ideals, your ideology. So that's pretty much what that song's about. It's about the very destructive nature of that mindset. That's what it's about.
But on a personal level or on a band level, you never had to cope with it.
No. Luckily, no. I mean, because again, I think 99% of people, I think, around the globe feel the same way. It's like that's. Listen, I'm an atheist. I'm not a religious guy at all, but I respect people's decision to worship whatever they want to worship. I'm a live and let live kind of guy. Just don't force that bullshit on me. I don't want to have anything to do with that, and don't force it on me. Don't force it into our laws. Don't make it part of our government. I don't want any of that shit in my life. Keep it out of my fucking life, and I'm fine. You can do whatever the hell you want. Just don't force it on me.
Isn't that in a way hard in the States, because when you want to become a national, you need to pledge allegiance to the flag and I guess to the Bible or something like that? Is there a real separation between the state and religion?
Well, originally there was supposed to be separation of church and state. Our founding fathers were atheists, and a lot of people in the U.S. have it so wrong. They think that no, it's one nation under God. It's a God. No, it was never about that. Our founding fathers were not about that at all. They were atheists, and that's fact. You know what I'm saying? But they've bastardized it. You know what I'm saying? And it's a bad thing when religion and government kind of mix. That's what fascism is. Just like when corporations and government fucking mix, it's fascism. And you see a lot of that happening in the U.S. right now. And it's a bad thing. It never leads to anything good, ever.
I think it's still a minority of people who dare call themselves atheists in the state, especially in certain areas.
There's probably a lot of atheists in the state, but people in the states, they just want to go with the flow. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people just kind of, I don't know, they kind of go with the flow, and they just kind of want to be part of something, whether it's because it was something that was in their family, or which is tradition, or they just don't want to rock the boat. Whatever, you know what I'm saying? At my age, I don't really give a shit what people think. You know what I'm saying? I'm an atheist. If you don't like it, go fuck off. I don't care.
Wanted to ask you something about the artwork. It was done by Par Olofsson. Can you tell me a bit about the concept? Was it the band who gave their input, or?
Always, yeah. All the concepts you see on our covers, are our concepts. The concept for Atonement actually came from 4 lines in the song Atonement. There were 4 lines that kind of depicted that scene, visually. So we took those 4 lines and used them as an inspiration. We sent those ideas to Par, and we just kind of articulated them a little bit more, so he had a better idea of what we were looking for. And yeah, he pretty much did a phenomenal job in interpreting those ideas, you know, and creating that cover, which I think is a very dark cover, you know. So it worked. It's a great cover. You know, people are happy that we put the old logo back up there because it just looked better aesthetically. And yeah, I think it's a good piece, you know. And unintentionally, it's also a nod to the earlier stuff, you know. The Angel, we had no intention of doing that, but when we saw it, we're like, wow, this was cool. A lot of the old school fans will appreciate this. And they did.
There is a limited edition of the CD that features the song Immolation.
Yeah, and the digipack.
Yeah. Who came up with the idea to do a cover of that old song?
Well, here's the thing. Decibel, you know Decibel Magazine? Yes, okay. Decibel Magazine does a flexi series every month. So every month they have a band do a song, whatever they want to do. So Albert is a good friend of ours, and he approached us sometime a year before the album came out. And he said, hey, would you guys be interested in doing this at some point? I said, absolutely. The problem was we didn't know what we wanted to record, so we originally thought about doing a newer song while in the Atonement session and having them do maybe a different version of that, put it on the flexi stage, and have it come out before the album came out, like a couple of months before the record. Just that the timing didn't line up with that. So what we decided was I talked to Albert, and I was at the Maryland Death Fest last year, and Albert's there every year, and it was around that time people came up to me at the fest and said, hey, happy anniversary, it's the 25th anniversary of Dawn of Possession. I was like, oh, wow, cool, I didn't even know, you know. So we started thinking, said, well, maybe it's a good idea to re-record one of the classic songs off of that, to just as in honor of the 25th anniversary. So Immolation made the most sense because it was the first song we ever wrote. It was on the first demo, you know. So I mentioned that to Albert. I said, what would you think if we did, you know, a re-recording of Immolation? And he was like, wow, perfect, great idea. And I said, I'll do you one even better. I'll see if I can get Harris Johns to do the mix and mastering. And he was like, oh my God, if you can make that happen, that would be the best thing ever. So we emailed Harris, and Harris was totally into it, and he was happy to be part of it. So yeah, so that's how that happened. So originally it was on the Flexi series, and then the label said, hey, would you guys be cool if we put it on just the Digipack? And I thought that made sense because obviously the Flexi is a very limited thing. You know, most people in Europe are not going to have access to that at all. So I was like, okay, it'll be a cool thing to get out to the fans. And Albert was fine with that. He was like, yeah, that's fine. So that's how that happened.
You already mentioned that you played a couple of the new songs, even when the CD was not out yet. Yeah. How many new songs are you playing on this tour?
5. Same 5, yeah. We were going to do some different ones, but we figured, all right, let's stick with the ones we have right now. When we come back in September, we'll do some different ones, you know, so.
Okay, you're coming back in September. Is that, do you mean Europe or?
Allegedly.
Yeah. No summer?
Europe,
yeah.
Okay. No summer festivals there.
Okay.
They didn't want us this year,
no.
So.
Today's only the 3rd gig of the tour. How has it been so far?
Fucking horrible. No, no, it's been awesome. It's been awesome. We've had a great time. First 2 shows were great. We played in Poland the first night. It was fucking great show, like packed. And then we did a smaller show in Leipzig, Germany 2 days ago, which was great. Small venue, but packed. We played the Hellraiser, and it was a really good show for a Sunday night. Great response. All the bands are killer. You know, we got these guys here, Monuments, Misanthropy from France and Austria, so they're kind of multinational kind of guys. You know? The Vader guys I've known Peter for over 30 years, so he's a good friend, and you know, we love the Vader guys. We've done about 4 or 5 tours with them already, and the band from Italy, Five Rand. Is that how you say it? Five Rand? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. But they're Italian band, and they're cool, very cool people. So yeah, good vibe on the tour. That's kind of what I'm all about, just having good people on the tour that are fun, no egos, no bullshit, and you know, so far so good.
If I'm not mistaken, it's officially the 30th anniversary of Immolation next year.
Next year, February, will be 30 years. Yeah.
Can the fans expect something special?
Absolutely not.
That's clear.
They can expect maybe another tour, you know, that's about it. You know, we're not, I don't know.
No
it's
live.
It's a milestone. But
no live DVD or a big compilation.
you know, I don't know. Maybe we'll put out a fucking. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? I'd like. You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to go on a tour and play the whole new record. That's what I'd like to do. Everybody wants us to do the retro shit. Go play the whole first record, play the whole second record. I don't want to do that shit. I don't want to live in the past. You know, we're always about moving forward. So I would like to go out and do the whole Atonement album. Maybe we'll do something like that.
I have a last question. If you could organize your own festival with your 3 or 5 favorite artists that are alive, who would you pick?
Oh, I hate these questions. These are the worst questions. Don't ask me this shit. There's so many bands, it's hard to say. I like so many bands from all different genres, you know. It's so hard to say. Like we had the question about the big 4 of death metal that we did online. And you know, the bands I picked just because of their presence in the scene, their longevity, I guess what they achieved, you know what I'm saying? You know, I included Possessed in that list because Possessed, I felt, was Seven Churches, was one of those bands that, you know, inspired. I think they were the band that kind of, they were the band that defined death metal to me.
And they still kick ass?
And they still kick ass, you know, so they, of course, had to be on that list, you know. But there's a million bands, you know, metal and non-metal, you know. I like all kinds of stuff, you know, so I would, you know, the fans may not like my response because I'd say, okay, Led Zeppelin, fucking Dead Can Dance, fucking, you know, stuff like that. I like that shit too, so.
Thank you so much for your time.